Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining me today on today's webinar. My name is Daniel Marsh, and I'm a Business Development Manager here at Zeisel UK. So the purpose of today's webinar is basically to give you a quick overview of a recent release, 10.1 release in September for Nebula. So I'll give you a bit of a view over Nebula later on, but I just want to recap on the last webinar I did in regards to this, just to sort of go over some of the features in a bit more detail. I am going to skip over it quite quickly, so if you do want to have a review in a bit more detail, then just look back on our previous webinars and then you'll be able to get exactly the same slide deck. So some of the features that came out in 10.1 for the Nebula Control Center is the ability to actually change the organization owner. So this is quite useful. If obviously, say an MSP company purchased a license and set it all up and they are the owner, and then they need to relinquish control to the end user, then this can be done in the organization configure and administrator section. And you'll see there's a button where you can change the owner of that. And basically it'll move the owner from the previous one to the new one, and the previous owner will be set as an organization full user. So bear in mind, if you are relinquishing full control, then you'll just need to make sure to deactivate that user. Another thing that's been added is being able to delegate an administrator. So an owner obviously has full control over the entire platform as well as license points transfer. However, the MSP who could be managing the service for the customer doesn't have the ability to do that. So what you can do is the customer can entrust the MSP to be a delegate administrator, giving them the ability to change them license points and transfer them over. So to be able to do this, you go to the section Organization, Configure and Administrator, and that will give them basically the same level of privileges as the owner. However, they can't delete the organization, they can't assign another delegate admin, and they can't transfer the ownership. So the ownership in essence still sits with the owner, and the delegate administrator has every single permission except for them three. So basically they can't relinquish the owner of any sort of control. So in regards to the delegate administrator, so the account must be an organization full administrator to be prompted to be a delegate administrator. So you can't, for instance, any other levels of permissions, let's say, cannot be done as a delegate administrator. So if it's a read only, for instance. So that's just something to bear in mind. Firmware upgrade. So this has been implemented where you can actually firmware upgrade multiple sites at the same time. So you'll be able to do all access points on a particular site, or all switches or gateways on a particular site, for instance. So previously this wasn't available, so you had to go through each site, which could be quite painful if you had quite a lot of sites. However, they do now give you the ability to do that. And what you can do is, because it all gets inherited from a system-wide default upgrade time that you specify, once you start changing it, you then have the ability to sort of roll it back and set it back to the sort of the defaults. So that's just giving you the ability to easily push out firmware upgrades to multiple sites. As it grows, it obviously becomes harder to manage if you can only do it at site level. So the site topology enhancement. So the site topology to me is a very good feature because it actually maps out the entire network and shows you what it's all capable of doing. So some of the things that haven't been in there previously that have now been added is, for instance, the ability to be able to see mesh links in the topology. Now they're distinguished specifically with broken lines. So you'll see how on the diagram shown on the screen at the moment, how the solid lines are physical connections, whereas the chopped up sort of lines for wireless links. And if you click on it, it'll show you the uplink is running on a 2.4 gigahertz wireless channel, for instance. And that can be found in site-wide monitor and topology. A couple of other features as well is being able to reboot PoE ports. So being able to physically press the reset button, that'll power the unit down and power it back on. So that means that you can do it all from the site topology as well. And then when it comes to identifying the actual remote links, you'll see on the right hand side of the screen, you've got two wireless links where we're showing the status, and you have the ability to actually reboot either side of it as well. So if you're having a potential wireless issue, then you can do that. And you can see that the remote port on the remote end is also showing the actual radio that it's transmitting on. And on the left-hand side, it shows you the sort of remote port in the switch that it's connected to. So you can fully trace back the entire topology using this particular feature. And it is a ProPack feature, but I advise that for management, it is absolutely critical for supporting your customers and also fault finding. So we've also enhanced sort of like Find My Device. So we've now added an ability for the users to go in there and actually just on the right hand side where you click on your little profile icon, you've now got My Devices, and it'll show you all your devices that you're an owner of. So any organizations that you're an owner of, those devices will show up there. It will give you sort of like hyperlinks anyway, so anything that's underlined and in like a blue writing can be clicked on, it'll take you to the relevant page. So the MAC address will take you to the device details page, the organization will take you to the organization overview, and the site will then take you to the site dashboard, and then you can deviate to the sections that you want for them specific areas. So you've also got the ability as well to be able to filter this, so sort of customized keywords, and you can also specify the tags as well. So if you use tagging, it really helps you, allows you to actually narrow down and filter down your devices. So the configuration template for APs. So the configuration template is quite good because basically you create a virtual site that you will bind physical sites to, and then you can push out settings. So if you've got a chain of restaurants, for instance, you could have a virtual site, configure it, and then you could actually push out changes to say 5, 10, 20 sites, or even 50 sites, however many are bound to that template. For instance, if every month they change their wireless password or something like that, then that means you can roll out 50 SSID changes or password changes to all of the sites within a matter of minutes, and only in the matter of a few clicks of a button. So again, being able to improve the amount of management you've got over the entire site. So it sort of just shows you the element of this. So you'll have the template site, which you do have the AP configurations and some switch configurations on there. You'll then bind site A, site B, site C to it. And then any changes that you make will then get pushed out to it. So you'll see here, if you change the AP configuration, it'll then get pushed out to the rest of the sites that are bound to it. So users are allowed to set AP configurations in the template sites. So this is such things such as SSIDs, authentication, so for passwords and encryption methods, captive portal settings, SSID availability, so that's more scheduling, so you can turn SSIDs off at a specific time. The radio settings and the AP and port settings, so being able to sort of tag VLANs on the ports, increase the output power and things like that. All them facilities available within the configuration template. You might find not everything is included in it as of yet, but as we're working through upgrading it and adding features, everything will be available in the future. So some of the things that you can do is you can allow the bound site to have a local override as well. So albeit it might inherit everything from the virtual site and the template as such, but you do have the ability to actually override that, so the bound site will ignore any configuration changes when that is enabled. Now, what happens if the ProPack expires? Because the configuration template is a ProPack feature, what will happen when it expires? So when it expires, the site will keep the current settings, but it will unbind itself. So any change, I mean, if you was to try and go in there anyway, it would be grayed out, but it just means that it will unbind itself and become a separate entity again. And the configuration template, as I say, will be grayed out in the web GUI, so you won't be able to access it. You won't be able to make any changes to it, but it will maintain any settings that you've done previously. So in regards to the configuration template, so organization administrators can revert bound settings back to the template. So if the local override setting has been checked or unchecked, then the organization can go in there and go, right, I want to revert this back to the template settings, and basically it will push out the settings again because there could have been some changes made since it was last pulled down from the configuration template. So it allows the administrator or the organization administrator to override that and then force them settings back out to the individual site. So a nice little feature which has recently been added, which is a little bit like the dynamic personal pre-shared key, which was released in the previous version. This time we've got the cloud authentication with a voucher. So this is basically the ability to create a voucher that can be printed out, handed out to a customer with a specific expiry date and things like that, where they can access the Wi-Fi. So you might want to take money for it, give them a voucher and things like that. Good for hospitality, cyber cafes and things like that. And obviously you can affect how long they've got on there, when it expires and things like that. So to do this, you'll go into the access point, configure an authentication page, and you'll see there that you'll specify the voucher, and then ultimately it will just ask you for the voucher code in a web GUI when you access it, which once created will allow you access. So to be able to create the voucher, you basically go into site-wide monitor and vouchers, and then you can create, and then you can specify a quantity, how long the code wants to be, any particular comments on it, the duration, and then if you want to print it out or save it as a default. So very easy to manage, very easy to create, and very easy to implement into the industry. So just a little bit look on what it looks like. So you can add your own logos onto it. You can specify what the SSID name is, how many hours it's valid for, and what your login code is, so the voucher code as such. And then you can print and deliver the code, either print it out physically and give it to them, or send it as a PDF file. So this is what it shows you when it's asking for verification. So when the SSIDs, when you've tried connecting your client to the SSID, then basically you'll be redirected to a captive portal side of things, asking you for the voucher code. And then you'll see in the logs, it does state when the clients are connected, what their authentication method is, and it will be the voucher. And then in regards to traceability, you can see in the event logs as well, what access point they're connected onto and what voucher they used as well. So again, being able to sort of trace that, have a look at their IP addresses in case they're breaching your terms and conditions of the usage. So in regards to the status of the vouchers, so there's 4 statuses. You've got unused, active, expire, and delete. So unused is what it is. The voucher has been created, but the user hasn't yet authenticated onto the SSID. So when the actual voucher screen comes up in the web browser, once you put your voucher in, it will then become active, and then the duration will start counting down. And it's key to note as well, it's not based on how much usage you have on there. So if you log on for 10 minutes, log back off, it doesn't stop the countdown. It'll continue counting down for 30 minutes or however long you've specified on there. The expire is when the voucher reaches the duration period and can't be used for any authentication again. So that's when the purchase of voucher for 30 minutes, that 30 minutes is up, the voucher will change to expire. It will still show on there as being expired until the purge period has been specified. And delete is when a voucher has been created, but it hasn't been used and it reaches its purged period, in which case it just deletes it and it basically says that voucher is null and void now. So as it says at the bottom, it is key to note that deleted and expired vouchers will be removed from the voucher list by the next day, but the logs will be kept, so you can still look back at 30 days, 365 days of the actual historical information for the vouchers and what they've been used for. So you do have the ability to reset the status of the voucher as well. So you can return it back to an unused status with the original duration and purge settings in there. So if, say, for instance, one of the customers has an issue with a computer, they've only been able to use so much of the voucher, you kind of feel sorry for them, so you reset it and allow them to carry on using it without having to reissue them a new one. You do have the ability, as I said previously, to customize the actual voucher page as well. So being able to stick a logo on there, a promotional URL, which will you'll get redirected to when you log in, but then you've also got promotional text that you can specify in there as well. So if you've got any deals or anything like that you want to put on the voucher just to gain a bit of interest, then that can also be done as well. And then in regards to the actual customization of the actual voucher page for when you actually log in, it's you basically change it and create a new captive portal theme, so you can sort of tailor it a little bit more, put your logos on and specify your own wording on there. So some key information about the cloud authentication with a voucher. So it'll only allow a maximum of 1,024 users to log in through the captive portal per site. And when exceeded, the disassociation station with the longest idle time. So any device which has got the longest idle time will get kicked off. In each site, only one SSID can use the voucher. So you can't have multiple SSIDs in the same site to use a voucher, but in an organization, you can have multiple sites, which means you'd be able to have two sites that both can use a voucher on one SSID. And again, let's discuss the behaviors when the license expires. So the specific settings for the vouchers will be grayed out from the web GUI, so you can't access them all. The SSID, which has been specified to use the voucher, will be disabled, so it won't even broadcast anymore. You won't even see it until you obviously renew your service, in which case you'll have to re-enable it manually as well. And that really gives you a quick overview of some of the things that have come in. And I just want to point your direction to the screen where we are currently doing an MSP program at the minute. There is a handout that you can download from this webinar that will outline all the benefits that you get. But just to cover some of them, you'd be able to, once you've been qualified and attended a meeting, completed some training, things like that, you'll get an upfront discount of 25% of Nebula licensing. You'll get gold, a ZAP level discount on SMB and cloud products. So that's 9% discount, even if you're an Ally product partner at the minute. If you join us on the MSP journey, get fully specialized, then you'll be able to get 9% off SMB and cloud products. You get priority access to our pre-sales and post-sales support right here in the UK. So that's the likes of myself. So basically, if you've got any projects that you're working on either before or any problems afterwards, then I'm always here to help you. And we're also looking at doing a loan program as well, where we're going to be able to loan out kits so that you'll be able to trial it, you'll be able to test it, you'll be able to get a feel for how it works and things like that. One thing that isn't noticed on here either is towards the end of the year as well, we are actually looking into a hardware of a service model where potentially you might be able to offer leasing of the hardware as well out to your customers. But if you've got any questions in regards to that, you can always contact myself, either by email or by phone. My email address is daniel.marsh@zeisel.co.uk, or you can contact my colleague, David Johnson, who is also running the MSP campaign with me. So I hope all that is beneficial. So before I get started with the Nebula, have you got any questions at all that you would like me to run through, any part of the Nebula system that you would like me to show you? So the question box I'm monitoring as well as I'm sort of going through it, so just bear with me. So as I've said, some of the features that we've got is if you click up here and go down to My Devices, you'll see it's listed as new. Now, this is the only site, so this is my home. This is the only site that I am an owner of, so it is the only, it only shows you the devices I have. And you'll see here that I have quite a few organizations under my name, but I'm only designated as an administrator of them, not an owner, so they don't appear here. So, and then if we go into sort of administrators, you'll have to bear with me, my 35 meg internet line is always struggling at this day and age, especially with the current climate and the amount of work that's going on in the background. So you'll see here, Nigel Canning, who's my sales engineer for the Zeisel UK, he's been delegated as an administrator just by ticking this box here. So as I say, in regards to the delegate owners, they have to be a full administrator. You can't do it to a read-only account, but it basically gives Nigel quite a lot of permissions over my particular site. So another thing that's been added into here, again, the firmware management overall for the entire site. So you'll see here, I've got multiple sites specified. One of them is a test, and I can upgrade all of the devices within that within my particular site. If I had multiple devices for my test home, they would also be listed down here, and then I'd be able to upgrade them as well. So let's see. So let's have a look at the topology next. So if we go into site-wide topology, so I haven't got any mesh links. Unfortunately, I can't demonstrate that. But ultimately, if this was a wireless mesh link here, that would be a broken line, and it would show you all the information just by hovering over it. As you can see, as I hover over the different elements in my network, it actually will change and provide you the statistics. Anything which has which is blue with a line underneath it is usually a hyperlink. So you can click on that, and it'll take you to the devices page. And you'll see here, this is an access point which I can reboot. Because obviously it's a power device, so I'll be able to reboot that. And this link here, because it is a PoE link coming from my main switch to my access point, it allows me to reset the power and in essence just reboot the access point if it's ever having any particular issues. Sorry about that. So yeah, the network topology, as I say, is really good because it allows you to physically go backwards and forwards between different devices, your switches, and takes you to the actual like the details page. So if I have a look on the access point, for instance, and this is a question that's come up recently, is the smart mesh which has been enabled and is supported by the access points. It's a global setting that you set in this in these facilities here. So it'll be overall, you'll set up smart mesh and it'll activate it for all your access points. That all isn't always ideal because there might be an access point that you don't want to work as a smart mesh in any way, shape, or form. So you have the ability here to actually edit that and turn it off and override the global settings. So for the specific to this device. And you will also notice that recently we've introduced the bridge mode, so being able to create a wireless bridge from one access point to another. Now the difference between a mesh and a bridge is that a bridge device will only allow an access point to connect to it, so it's a point-to-point link as such. Smart mesh will allow an access point to connect to it as a client, but also will allow clients to connect to it as well, so it's like more of a point to multi-point sort of setup. And if my access point was to support bridging, then you'd be able to enable that and disable that in this sort of section here. So just bear in mind on that. Okay, so let's have a look. What other features have we got? So the MSP features, because obviously it's an MSP platform that we're sort of pushing into, you'll notice that things have slightly changed where the MSP portal and things actually have their own menu now. So being able to brand your actual unit by putting on a logo, any support information or anything like that, then you can do within this section here, and being able to license transfer as well from one organization to another. Again, this is key because you can only transfer from an organization you are an owner of to another organization you are also an owner. And you'll see if I click on that, it doesn't provide me anything because I'm not owner of another organization. So I have had a question come through from Elliot. I'd like to know what developments are being done on the reporting for the devices and the conversation with the endpoints. In regards to that, I think there's going to be a lot of enhancements over the course of the next few months with the development of the reporting. But at the moment, you've pretty much got your event viewer, which shows you all the logs, such as deassociations with clients and the wireless devices, the roaming from one access point to another, and things like that. But we can have a discussion in that in more detail once I've got a newer roadmap towards the end of this year, Elliot, if that's okay. So another thing which has recently been added is a few of our new access points. So we've got quite a new flavors of access points coming out. So you'll notice we've got our AX access points coming out. We're also bringing out some new AC Wave 2 products, which are going to be supported in Nebula. So we've got a sort of flat panel wall-mounted one, which has pass-through ports and PoE. They've been added. So the WAC 500H series and the WAC 530D-S version 2. So the version 1 that we've currently got out doesn't support Nebula. So we're refreshing it and bringing it out as a V2 that'll support Nebula. It'll contain the smart antenna technology, and it will also have the pass-through PoE ports and a 7-watt PoE port on there as well. So, for instance, you can power a DECT phone, like a Yealink DECT phone, for instance. So let's have a look. So the voucher. So if you go to site-wide and vouchers, you'll see it's in the beta. I've tested it; it works pretty well actually. So by all means, if you've got the Pro Pack, just play about with it, create an SSID, and have a look, see how you get on. Well, basically, you log into it. You can go to create, and then you can go through all the quantity, the code length, etc., as I showed you on the presentation. And again, the duration in hours. So you can sort of increase these or just sort of free type it. Again, it's based on when it's registered, and then it'll just count down, and then it'll kick them off. So it's not based on your actual usage. I think that probably covers everything else that I've really got to cover on Nebula. So as I say, we are enhancing it more and more. There's a new release due out in I think January, which is going to implement quite a few new features. Such as static routing and switching, I know is something that I'm very keen to see, especially for our more core networking elements. One thing I will just mention is obviously you can change all the voucher settings as well to be able to specify the duration, any specific text. You can basically change it to read what you like, and again, you can set it to show the image, and you can upload your image at this point here. So that can be accessed through the actual voucher page. So if I just sort of go back, you can access it from here. Okay. So let's have a look. Alex has just put through a question. Had issues with firmware updating. Start the update and then navigate from the firmware page and go back, and a while later the firmware seems to have cancelled. So from what you're saying there, Alex, you'll actually need to maintain being on the firmware upgrade screen for the firmware to go ahead. Now, that shouldn't be the case because it should initiate a firmware upgrade and then allow you to navigate through it, and you can just then check the status on the screen. So drop me an email in regards to that, Alex. I know you've got my email address, and I'll probably follow that up with support and just make sure it works. And I'll probably also test it internally as well at home, just to see if I get the same sort of outcome. But yeah, we can definitely look at resolving that for you. That is not a problem at all. So yeah, I mean, that pretty much covers everything that I wanted to show you for the 10.1 release. As I say, there's not a lot that's been really added to it, but the bits that have been added are like real niche little touches, like the voucher system. I've had a lot of interest from customers with that. The network topology, the more they enhance that, the better, because to me it is a very, very valuable tool. And then again, just sort of making things easy to find. So the My Devices, being able to access that, it's nice, but there's obviously other ways of getting around it, but it does allow you to do that. And the firmware management from a organization point of view, as you grow your sites and you take on a big customer with multiple sites, that is a very valuable feature. So yeah, I would just like to thank you all for coming on today. I seem to have answered all your questions, but however, if you do feel that there is some questions you do want answering, again, email me at daniel.marsh@zeisel.co.uk. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn as well. I often share some decent posts on there, and feel free to contact me on there as well. I'm quite active on there as well. So all I can say is thank you again for joining me today. If you do need anything, you know where we are. And yet stay safe and have a good rest of your day. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.